Hey guys, and welcome to lesson number 3 for your 1202 A+ course. In this lesson, we're going to be continuing doing what we usually do. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about all of these dot points. I'm going to break it all down by sub dot point so you get every single thing you need to know. We're going to start with Windows 10, Windows 11 editions. What are N versions? Talk about every single one of these feature differences. These upgrade paths, you may recognize some of them from previous videos, and also these different hardware requirements, which we've also touched briefly on, but we're going to touch on them again specifically because the exam objectives want us to do that. So before we get into this lesson, where I'm going to tell you everything you need to know, I'm going to give you practice questions for all of this, so you're going to be ready for your exam. Who am I? If you're new here, my name is Matt, and I basically help people pass their A+ Core 1 and Core 2 certifications. As far as I'm concerned, that's my only goal in this life. So people are saying that my notes have helped them pass their test. They're saying that they got, I think this is an 890, not an 89, but that they have passed and they're moving on to Network Plus now. They're saying that they passed a few minutes ago and they're thanking me for my help moving on to Core 2. And I also received this lovely email from this gentleman who's basically said that he really prefers my study methods to the study methods of others, and he's found it really helpful. This person's saying that they are now moving on to their next exam because I've helped them pass. You get the picture. So look, if you want me to help you pass your A+, just like I've helped all of these people pass theirs, stick with me. I'll get you through it. Now, our goals today, as I've touched briefly on, we're going to cover the entire exam objective. Specifically, we're going to start with comparing Windows editions, look at some of the core features within those Windows editions, really get to know them, and then we're going to have a look at some upgrade paths as well as a little bit more. But that's kind of like the brief summary of what we are going to be doing. So let's go ahead and get started with our Windows 10 editions. So I'm going to tell you what you need to know, and then I'll give you some practice questions on this topic as soon as we cover the content, so you get a chance to challenge yourself. Let's go ahead and do it, guys. Windows 10. The first one we need to know about is Windows 10, the overview of the editions. So we've got 4 main editions. We have Home, we have Pro for Workstations, and we have Enterprise. So Home, at a zoomed out perspective, Home is for your individual consumer at home. You are not part of a business. You just want to use it for yourself. So you have basic features, basic functionality. Pro, you're part of a business now. So you need some extra functionality. You need to be able to integrate with what is called a domain, which is basically central management of all the computers, all the devices within that business. So you need functionality to do that. You need a little bit more memory, a little bit more RAM, a little bit more capabilities. Pro for Workstations is like if you need a lot of heavy physical hardware resources, a lot of CPUs, you're doing a lot of graphical performance type work. Think video editors, think people who are crunching a lot of numbers. They need a high performance system. And then you've got Enterprise, which is if you are in a large organization, things that really help you to manage a very wide variety of devices. That's a brief overview. Let's get specific. So Windows 10 Home, primarily designed for individual home users who do need basic computing functionality. So that's probably you at home. That's me at home. I have a Home edition. Now, we have some key features. So Microsoft account integration, we have our Microsoft account. You're going to be able to intuitively access that on Windows 10 Home. OneDrive basic backup features. You have Windows Defender built-in security. You will have that built into your Windows 10, and Cortana voice assistant as well. So those are kind of the key features that come along with it. But what are we missing here? Well, specifically, what do we have and what do we not have? The main limitations of Windows 10. You cannot access a domain. You cannot join Windows domains. Now, a domain is like if you're part of a business, you join that domain, that means that your device is able to be centrally managed and you are able to access all of the resources on that business's network, essentially, like as a simplified version. Windows 10 Home is built for one individual user, so it does not have the need for that, therefore it has no domain access. It also does not have full disk encryption. It does not have access to BitLocker. Basically, what BitLocker is it's a Windows thing that encrypts your disk. It does not encrypt data on Windows 10 Home editions. That's important to know. It does not have full remote desktop capabilities, so it can only act as a client. It cannot act as a host. What that means is if you have Windows 10 Home, you can use your computer to connect to another device, but you cannot have someone connect to you. Okay, you can only act as a client. You cannot host remote connections. And it has no support for group policy. Why would you need to have support for group policy? Group policy is basically where you can have your IT manager put you in like a logical group and assign certain roles or permissions or settings to that group of people. Now, Windows 10 Home is designed for people at home, so there's no need for you to be part of a group in a business and have settings applied to you, right? Because it's just you that you're worried about. So you cannot have group policy. That's some of the main limitations you need to know about there. Windows 10 Pro takes it a step up. So this is built specifically for business and enterprise environments. You're someone who's a professional. Windows 10 Pro, it extends the Home Edition with some additional features, right? Now, here's what we do have. We now have BitLocker. We have full disk encryption to protect your data. So all the data on your device, on your drive is encrypted. We have domain joining. Now, because you're a professional, Windows 10 Pro, you can access domains. So you can have that centralized setup, join the domain of a business and be managed and access those business resources. You can now have full RDP, remote desktop capabilities. You can be a client or a host. You can access another device or you can be accessed, and you can now have that group policy support that we just talked about before. We should remember what that is, okay? You can be put into a group and have settings and etc. applied to you by your like IT manager, we can say, for that business. So you now have access to all of these features. Also, I didn't mention this, but Windows 10 Home, I think from memory, it's about 128 gigabytes of RAM. Now, Windows 10 Pro upgrades that to a whopping 2 terabytes of RAM. So we can see how we've extended that capability to be able to have more RAM, to be able to, excuse me, multitask a little bit more and do more resource-intensive actions, which is expected of a professional. So we've gone from 128 gigabytes in the Home Edition to 2 terabytes in the Windows 10 Pro Edition. And don't worry, I'm going to give you a table with all of this information in it later. So for now, just sit back, relax, take this in. Don't stress about trying to write this down. I'm going to give you one slide that has all of this on it later. I'm just talking us through it for the moment. So 2 terabytes maximum RAM upgrade for Windows 10 Pro. But what about Windows 10 Pro workstations? Okay, so it still says Windows 10 Pro, but we've just added 4 workstations. Essentially, what this means is Windows 10 Pro, you're not necessarily working with anything that requires a lot of intense hardware to run or to get through or to crunch through, right? You don't need to do a lot of resource-intensive work. It's more about the setting and the kind of features you need access to. But now when we're moving to workstations, this is a resource-intensive machine that is doing a lot of hard work. And as a result, it needs a lot of processing power and memory capacity. So you're thinking maybe a scientist who's crunching like thousands of numbers and they need a lot of CPU power, or a video editor who needs a lot of high intense capabilities to actually do that video editing and process and render that footage effectively and efficiently if they're working with 4K footage, for example. It's a computer that's very powerful for doing tasks that need a lot of power, essentially. Now, what specifically does that mean? Well, we can now have 4 physical CPUs in that computer. Okay, we now are able to have 4 CPUs in the same computer, and our RAM has been upgraded to 6 terabytes. Okay. In addition, we also gain access to something called the Resilient File System, or REFS. We have covered what this is in one of the previous exam objectives when we went through the different file system types. So I'm not going to give specifics on that because we can go back and have a look if we forget. Hopefully we remember what the Resilient File System is. Long story short though, it's advanced file system, also found in Windows Server environments, and it's designed for resilience, essentially, right? It's designed to be able to correct errors, be very resilient, and it fits in with this idea of being a workhorse, right? Because we need to be resilient if we're a workhorse. So if you can't remember what that is, go back, have a look at the last one where we covered it. But just know that Windows 10 Pro for workstations gives us access to that as well. Now, the final Windows 10 one we need to know about is Windows 10 Enterprise. So who's this targeted at? It's targeted at very large organizations that manage numerous devices through volume licensing agreements. So you might have hundreds, you might have thousands of different devices that you have to try to manage, and you have to manage everybody's licenses, who has licenses for what. Maybe the graphical design team has licenses for this, maybe the security team has licenses for this, and you've got to try to manage all of that. You're in an enterprise setting. So it allows the opportunity for advanced management. It includes all features from Pro, plus some additional sophisticated administrative tools for enterprise scale deployment and managing all of this stuff. Specifically, what does this mean? Enterprise gives us access to 3 more big things that are really going to help us out if we're trying to manage a business. I'm going to tell you exactly what they are after I take a sip of my coffee, because I'm starting to lose my voice. Okay, here we go. It gives us access to BitLocker, which is basically something where administrators can control which applications users are permitted to install and execute. So you can say, yeah, you can install these applications. No, you can't install this. Makes it really easy if you're trying to manage a business, and you can just give a blanket statement so that if someone tries to install an application for, I've been scrolling on the TikToks lately, and I've been seeing the advertisements for like these games where you got to like choose +1 or ×4. You've probably seen them. You know what I'm talking about. If someone tries to install a video game application, then it's going to be denied. Not even going to be able to happen. Branch cache is something that caches frequently accessed data at remote sites, reducing wide area network traffic and improving performance. So instead of like always having to go all the way out here to access that data, branch cache will say, oh, you're accessing this data a lot. We're just going to store this data over here. So now whenever you need to access it, you just go here, and it's like so much quicker, right? In an enterprise environment, I'm sure you can see how that would be very useful. Additionally, it has granular user experience control, granular UX control. So you can define precisely what features and interfaces elements users see on their desktops. Let's kind of tie it in here. If you're looking at enterprise and you need to control what applications everyone in your business can or cannot download, you need to get Windows 10 Enterprise. If you're looking at caching frequently accessed data, you're going to be looking at Enterprise. If you're looking at really granular, specific control over what users have on their desktop in an enterprise environment, you're going to want Windows 10 Enterprise. Okay. You also get an upgrade to 6 terabytes of RAM. This is the same as Pro for Workstations. Okay. So same as Pro for Workstations. You also get everything else that we have had previously. You get domain access, BitLocker encryption, remote desktop hosting, and group policy management, of course. So everything that we had before, we have, plus these 3 as well. That's enterprise. Now, here's a table that pretty much summarizes everything I've just said. So you can have a look at the version. Okay, maximum RAM for a 32-bit version is always 4 gigabytes. And maximum RAM for a 64-bit version, you can see how it goes from 128 for home, 2 terabytes for Pro, 6 terabytes for Pro for Workstations and Enterprise there. Now, the difference between 32-bit, where it says x86, and 64-bit, where it says x64, we covered that in Core 1. So hopefully you kind of remember that architecture from Core 1, because we went over that a lot there. I'm not going to kind of talk about that, and you really don't need to know that in specifics for this exam anyway, but just hopefully that rings a bell. Domain access, you can see which ones have access to those here. BitLocker, you can see which ones have access. Remote desktop protocol, you can see how that works, right? It outlines it all here for you. So take a screenshot of that as you want, and if you want. And a simple way to kind of study this, honestly, just like try to draw this table out from memory and just try to say, okay, this version has this and this and this. If you can do this from memory, try to draw it. If you forget, take a breath, have a look at the table, take a breath, come back, try to draw it again until you can clearly outline which version has each of these. This is going to be a big thing on your exam. You're going to need to make sure you are able to cover this. So let's do some questions on this particular topic. Question 1 for Windows 10 versions is going to ask us the following. A single user wants a version of Windows 10 for their personal computer. They need built-in antivirus and cloud storage integration, but do not require advanced security or network management features. Which edition is best suited to this user? Is it A, Home, B, Pro, C, Pro for Workstations, or D, Enterprise? Pause the video if you need more time. Your answer is coming in 3, 2, and after the sip of coffee. Here we go. A, home. All right. So let's have a look at the question. The question says they want, it's a single user, one user. Already we should be thinking home. Wants a version of Windows 10 for their personal computer. One user, personal computer. We should already be thinking home. That's kind of the giveaway already, right? That's really all we should need to point us towards home there. But built-in antivirus and cloud storage, that both comes with Windows 10 Home. That's perfectly fine. Home is all we need. Read that if you want an explanation, if you got that wrong for the other answers, but I'm going to try to keep this moving and move on to the next question for this one, which reads, a scientist is building a new computer with a very large 6 terabyte of RAM and multiple processors to run complex simulations. They also plan to use the resilient file system for data integrity. Which edition of Windows 10 is designed for this type of hardware? Is it A, Home, B, Pro, C, Pro for Workstations, or D, Enterprise? Your answer coming in 3, in 2, in 1. Pause the video if you need more time. Here we go. It is C, Pro for Workstations. So hopefully we got that right. 6 terabytes of data plus the need, of RAM, plus the need to do intensive workloads should have been the giveaway for Pro for Workstations there. That description matches Pro for Workstations. It is the workhorse. Okay, read that if you need to, but we're going to move on to Windows 11 editions and the differences between these. So we're going to have an overview of the Home Edition, the Pro Edition, and the Enterprise Edition. There's a lot of similarities here, guys. Just a few small differences. Otherwise, everything's pretty much the same, to be honest. So look, Home Edition, same thing, one single user, not part of a business. But this time, we do have some basic BitLocker functionality in Home. Basic device encryption, right? So it lacks some of the more advanced features of BitLocker, but it does have basic device encryption. Other than that, one personal user, not part of a business, they just want it for themselves. Windows 11 Home, basic BitLocker functionality, all right? Windows 11 Pro, you can see there's a bit less detail here, right? And that's intentional. I'm doing that on purpose to kind of guide you as to what you need to focus on. Windows 11 Pro, is this similar to Windows 10 Pro, designed for office environments and larger organizations. It offers a lot of the similar things. So we now have Active Directory integration. We can connect to domains, essentially, right? We now have BitLocker encryption. We now have Hyper-V virtualization, so you can start to access virtual machines. That's something specific to Windows 11 here that we didn't talk about for Windows 10. And remote desktop server as well. You can be both a client and a host now. Okay. Again, I'll give you a slide at the end of these to summarize what you need to know. I'm kind of flying through this one because a lot of it's very similar. Windows 11 Enterprise, a lot of the same thing. It's honestly pretty much the same as Windows 10 Enterprise. You've got that granular control. You've got access to some of those additional things. Enterprise advanced features for Windows 11. You've got mobile device management capabilities. You've got mobile application management as well for that granular control over application deployment and usage. So again, it's about that granular control over what people in your business can or cannot install on their system. And resilient file system. You now have access to that too. Okay. So let's go ahead and clearly kind of compare and summarize the differences here. So you've got the version, you've got the specific thing you need to know about and whether or not that particular version has access to that, plus the RAM. So you can see here, Home, 128 gigs, same as Windows 10. Pro, 2 terabytes, same as Windows 10. Enterprise, 6 terabytes, same as Windows 10. So a lot of similarities there. And you can have a look at the other features here, right? But again, make sure you can kind of draw that table off from heart for Windows 11, but the similarities from Windows 10 carry over to Windows 11. With that being said, let's go ahead and move on to, I think, 1 or 2 questions on Windows 11. All right, the first question reads, a user is purchasing a new laptop for personal use. They want a version of Windows 11 that is pre-installed on most consumer computers, integrates with their Microsoft account, and includes basic device encryption. Which edition of Windows 11 are they most likely to get? Is it A, Home, B, Pro, C, Enterprise, or D, N version? Pause the video if you need more time. Please pause it. Your answer's coming in 3, 2, your last chance to pause the video, 1. Here we go. It is A, Home. It's installed on most consumer devices. That would have been the giveaway. And it has that basic encryption feature. All right, read this if you need to figure out why you got that wrong, but hopefully we didn't. Next question reads, a large organization with a volume licensing agreement needs to deploy a new operating system. They require advanced features for mobile device and application management and also need support for the resilient file system. Which edition of Windows 11 would be the most suitable? Is it A, Home, B, Pro, C, Enterprise, or D, N version. Pause the video if you need more time to think about this. Your answer's coming in 3, in 2, in 1. Please hit the pause button if you need to. Here we go. It is C, Enterprise. Excuse me. So hopefully we got that right. We just talked about all this, guys, right? I'm going to try to fly through this. If you need to, pause and read, go back and revise. But, right, Enterprise has that business-wide, enterprise-wide management tools that you need to do everything that was outlined in that question. So the next thing we need to know about are N versions. What are these? These are versions of Windows specifically designed for the European market. Now, what does that mean? Let's get into it. Basically, N versions exist due to a European Commission antitrust rulings from 2004 against Microsoft's bundling practices. So bundling a lot of Microsoft-related software into the operating system download is something they kind of frowned upon, essentially. So in Europe, you've got N editions, you've got some KN editions, specifically in Korea. But basically, what are N editions? What do they mean? What it is you're downloading the exact same operating system, but it's just missing some of the usual things that come along with it. So it does not have Windows Media Player as the default media playback application. You don't have that installed. It does not have Groove Music, which is Microsoft Music streaming and playback service. It doesn't have video content viewing application. It doesn't have voice recorder. It does not have Skype. Okay, it doesn't have this stuff pre-installed. And I think the theory is like that way the user can choose what they want to use for each of these functionalities and download their own preferred one instead of having Microsoft as the default installed application for this purpose. So it does not come with this stuff installed. That's pretty much it. If you do want to install these things, you can download a media feature pack from Microsoft, install the components, and you'll have that full functionality back again, just like you didn't have an N version. So long story short, N version comes without all of this, but you can easily get it back again by doing this, by just downloading that media feature pack, okay? Excuse me. Okay, so a quick question. Hopefully you guys get this one right. What are Windows N editions? Is it A, versions of Windows with additional security and networking features for professional use? B, editions of Windows that omit pre-installed multimedia applications? C, a high-performance edition of Windows with support for multiple physical CPUs and resilient file system? Or is it D, the standard consumer version of Windows that integrates with your Microsoft account and includes device encryption? Your answer coming in 3, in 2, in a sip of a coffee. Here we go. It is B, editions of Windows that omit pre-installed multimedia applications due to European antitrust rulings. So we just went over that. I'm not going to re-explain it. I know you guys got that one, okay? If this question seems easy, if these questions seem easy, it's because I'm giving them to you directly after we do the content. And it's not really so much to test you. What it is, it's to help your brain process what we just learned. Because if you're sitting here passively taking it in, just writing notes, it's actually not a good way to process it. But if you're trying to answer a question straight away, you're taking that content in and you're processing that information. So that's the main purpose of this. Yes, might be a bit tricky for you to answer, but if it seems easy, it's because it's not on a randomized test. So don't feel like it's too easy. It's because we just covered the content. All right. Now, let's have a look at some key features. The first one we need to know about is the difference between domain networks and workgroup networks. So basically, guys, a workgroup network is you've got a very small office and you have a bunch of individual computers and they are all set up individually and directly connected to one another, but there's no centralized management. So what that means is if you want to do something, you have to go and log into that individual computer and do the setup yourself. Whereas with a domain, you have that centralized Active Directory management. So like the IT manager, for example, in that business can just access your computer generally remotely and install whatever it is they need to install or change whatever settings they need to change. And they can put you in group policy and apply settings and stuff to the entire group of devices with very little effort. So worker group is individual computers directly connected to each other. Domain is that centralized access. Honestly, that's the key of what you need to know. Workgroup has individual device security management, so you have to individually set up each device, whereas domain model, you can have unified authentication and policies. So you might have to authenticate to the network, for example, or you might have to have specific policies that apply to all devices, right? Workgroup is ideal for home and small offices, right? You don't really need centralized management if you've just got like 4 computers in one room in your house or in a very tiny office. But if you have thousands of devices, you're going to want a domain model because you can't walk around physically managing each of those devices. You're going to want to have them set up to a domain for centralized management. Workgroup does not have any central authentication server, but a domain model does have enterprise level security controls. It does have that central authentication. Okay, so basically Workgroup is like a few computers directly connected to each other, no centralized management. Domain is centralized management. You can make changes to your entire fleet of devices from the comfort of your own office. That's essentially the key. So just understand Workgroups are good for one kind of very small office, few devices, but if you're an enterprise, if you're a big business, you're going to want a domain model for the reasons outlined here. Next thing we need to know about is Active Directory domain services. What does that mean? So basically, guys, it's a central database, so it manages all network resources and user accounts. You can manage everything about your resources and about your user accounts, their permissions, what their devices look like, right? Things like that. You can manage all of that centrally at a central database. Why is this good? It's very scalable, right? You can support thousands of devices from one single point. So again, you don't have to get up, walk around to each different device and try to change things manually. You can do it over Active Directory. You can do it from the comfort of your own office. It's also good because it has security policies that are consistent. So you have policy enforcement that's consistent across all devices through Active Directory, and authentication. You can turn on things like single sign-on for unified user experience. So you sign on once and you are now authenticated to all the resources that you need that are assigned to your particular user group. Okay? Understand just Active Directory is like the centralized management in an enterprise setting, essentially. All right, at a brief kind of scale out, that's what you need to understand. Now, we also need to understand the difference between corporate versus home desktop styles. Really, don't worry about this one too much. Just, in a home environment, you can customize your computer as much as you want. You have to individually install all the applications, all of the settings. You have to set everything up yourself. But generally, in a corporate environment, that will be done for you by like the IT manager, right? They'll put you in a user group, give you particular permissions. They'll probably say what applications you can or cannot install or download, etc. It'll be very standardized, very set up for you. That's the key thing we need to understand, really. Some benefits of the corporate desktop setup and the control that comes with that is you have simplified support. So technicians can work with identical interfaces. Everything's standardized, so it's easy to work with devices across that enterprise. User mobility. Employees can use any company computer with familiar interface because everything's the same, and it all has the same security standards applied. So it's very easy to keep that consistent, which is always a good thing. We now need to know about remote desktop protocol as well. We've already talked about which versions have access to what, but we got to do it again. So that kind of tells us how important this is going to be for your exam. So if you're a host, that's when you're accepting incoming connections. Someone is connecting to your computer. But if you're a client, that is the one that's the one who initiates that connection to the computer. So that's kind of what that means. Now we should remember what this is available on. For home editions, you cannot be a host, but you can be a client. For Pro, Enterprise, and Pro for Workstations as well, you can be a host and a client. So it's just that home edition where you can't be a host. All right? We just went over that. We should know that. Windows does come with the default built-in remote desktop connection application, but if you're on a different one, there are other ones that you can use. So Microsoft Remote Desktop app is available from the App Store for Mac OS Linux, has variations. Mobile platforms such as Android and iOS apps have variations as well. So no matter where you are, you can do remote desktop application to some degree. You can, remote desktop connection. You can connect remotely in some way, shape, or form. You just got to find the right program from the right app store, etc. Okay, that's pretty much what you need to know. BitLocker, we know what it is. It's encrypting your device, encrypting your drive. Okay. The benefits of this, if you have your drive completely encrypted, if someone takes it, if they steal it physically, they still can't access your data because it's encrypted. So it protects you from physical theft, okay? And secure key storage ensures authorized data recovery. So when you do actually eventually recover that device, so long as you have the decryption key, you're going to be able to access that easily, quickly, and recover all that data efficiently. Basically, BitLocker encrypts your drive. If someone steals it, they're not going to get your data. That's pretty much it. So, what's the difference between BitLocker and device encryption? We talked about how for Windows 11, Home has the basic functionality of BitLocker, but it doesn't have the full functionality. So this is where we're going to expand on that a little more. BitLocker, in its full functionality, has full administrative control, has multiple recovery key options, has advanced configuration settings, has TPM and PIN authentication. Okay, so TPM, we should remember from Core 1 what that is. Basically, it's like a method of encryption that's on the device itself, right? It's like the TPM is a little chip that is on the device that works to encrypt your data on that device, and you can actually use that to authenticate as well. You might want to rehash the 1201 if you can't remember what a TPM is, but the basic functionality, just device encryption for Windows 11 Home, has simplified consumer experience. Get rid of all the unnecessarily complicated stuff, just basic encryption, Microsoft account key storage, automatic activation, and has limited configuration options. So basically, the main difference, you don't really need to know the specifics too much, just that BitLocker has full functionality, a lot of settings to change, a lot of different things you can do. Device encryption, the basic functionality of BitLocker, and it is just basic, just device encryption, not really a lot of functionality to play around with. All right. Group policy management. We do need to understand the difference between local and domain-based policy management tools. So we've got something called gpedit.msc. This is local group policy. Basically, this is for single device management, so you can configure policies for individual standalone Windows devices. Local configuration means you control user interface behavior, security settings, and software rules, and it's for a non-domain environment, so primarily used when computers are not part of an Active Directory domain. So if you had one single device and you want to choose how your interface behaves, if you want to play with some of the security settings and you want to change some software rules, then you would want to be using gpedit.msc. That's basically when you would want to use this. That's functionally what you need to know. gpmc.msc is essentially the group policy management console, which provides centralized policy deployment across an entire Active Directory domains, managing hundreds or thousands of systems simultaneously. So gpmc.msc is for enterprise management. So this is the console that would provide you the ability to essentially enact these changes. Okay, that's what we need to know, really. Let's have a look at some questions about everything we just covered since our last set of questions. The first one reads, a company's IT manager wants to implement a centralized network model that allows for unified authentication and consistent policy enforcement for all computers. Which network model, relying on Active Directory, is the manager describing? Is it A, a work group, B, a workstation, C, a domain, or D, an RDP client? Your answer coming in 3, in 2, in 1. Here we go. It is C, a domain. So just remembering, domain is for that centralized management for a lot of different devices in a business or enterprise, whereas a work group is just a few different computers individually connected. Each one has to be individually configured. That's the main thing we need to know and remember. The next question is, a technician is trying to configure a remote connection so that a desktop computer in the office can be controlled by a user from their home laptop. They discover that the office desktop, which is running standard consumer version of Windows, cannot accept incoming remote connections. What is the most likely reason for this problem? Is it A, the office desktop is running a home edition of Windows which lacks the RDP service for host? Is it B, the home laptop's operating system is incompatible with the RDP client? Is it C, the Office desktop is running a 32-bit version of Windows which has RDP limitations? Or is it D, the home laptop is not part of the same work group as the Office desktop? Take some time to think about it. Your answer's coming in 3, in 2, in 1. Here we go. It is A, the Office desktop has home running and therefore lacks the host service of remote desktop protocol. All right. Hopefully we should have remembered home cannot be a host. It can only be a client. It can connect, but it cannot be connected to. Alrighty. So read that if you got it wrong to clarify why and understand the answers. But we're going to move on to the next one, which reads, a user with a new computer is running a 64-bit version of Windows 10 Home and is planning to upgrade their RAM. What is the maximum amount of RAM the user can install and have their operating system fully utilized? Is it A, 4 gigabytes, B, 128 gigabytes, C, 2 terabytes, or D, 6 terabytes? Pause the video if you need more time. Your answer is coming in 3, in 2, in 1. It is B, 128 gigabytes. So basically comes down to needing to know the maximum RAM capabilities for every version of Windows. You are going to want to know that before you take your exam. And I gave you that table that you can look at earlier as well to really get good at doing that. Now, we're getting towards the end. We're just on our upgrade paths and procedures. And this is largely going to be rehashing stuff we covered in previous exam objectives. But the exam objectives want us to cover it again. So we're going to do that. We have an in-place upgrade, which is where you've got a version of Windows installed on your device and you want to upgrade to the next version, to a newer version. This is basically going to upgrade to that next version and preserve all of your existing data, existing configurations, all of your files and applications are going to stay just as they were, and you're just going to get that new edition of Windows on top of what you already had. So your data is safe. Whereas an the process, you can generally launch it from Windows. So if you run installation process from within the existing operating settings system, you can generally just go to the Windows, go to updates, and it'll be there, and you can just click update, and that will happen. System analysis. So the installer will check for compatibility and existing configurations. It will then have a look at the files, and it will update your operating system files around your existing data. That's the key thing. It's going around the data, and then your settings will be preserved. So your applications and user preferences remain the same. It's just that the operating system has been updated. Don't really need to know all that, really. Just know that you're upgrading and all your stuff is going to stay the same. Really, that's it. And that's compared to the other one you need to know, which is a clean installation, which is where you install the new version, but you're wiping everything. So it's a complete fresh start that wipes everything on the system. Okay. So install, you're saving your data and upgrading. Clean installation, not install, in place upgrade, you're saving your data and upgrading. But with a clean installation, you are wiping everything and you're going to have a fresh new machine afterwards. All right, read that. But honestly, that's what you need to know. So we don't need to focus on that. So this question is the following. It reads, guys, as you can tell, I'm going a bit loopy. Guys, it's 7 a.m. in the morning. I've been up since 5. I'm doing this before work, so forgive any stuttering that occurs. The question reads, which upgrade path allows a user to update their existing operating system to a newer version while keeping all their applications, files, and settings? Is it A, a clean install, B, an in-place upgrade, C, a remote installation, or D, image deployment? Your answer coming in 3, in 2. Please pause the video if you need more time. In 1, here we go. It is B, an in-place upgrade. So hopefully we should have known that the in-place upgrade, it keeps everything intact and upgrades the OS, while the clean install wipes everything. Remote installation, it's all outlined here, right? It's not really related. This is more about, do you do it in person or do you do it over the network or over the internet or remotely? And image deployment is just a different method of updating OSs. So the only 2 relevant answers here really were clean install or in-place upgrade. Hopefully we got that right. Windows 11, finally the last stop point here, some hardware requirements for Windows 11. There's 2 things you need to have. You have to have these. You have to have a TPM, a Trusted Platform Module 2.0, okay? And it must be enabled for those security features. If you don't have that, you cannot have Windows 11, okay? You also need to have a UEFI BIOS with Secure Boot enabled. So a modern firmware interface with Secure Boot capabilities, and those Secure Boot capabilities have to be enabled. So TPM 2.0 and a modern UEFI BIOS with Secure Boot enabled. Okay, mandatory requirements. If your system does not have these components, you cannot install Windows 11. So you're gonna have to know that for your exam. If you forget what a TPM is, it was in the core 1, so go ahead and revise. If you forget what the difference between a UEFI BIOS and a regular old style BIOS is, go ahead and revise core 1. But basically, UEFI is the modded version and BIOS is the older version. The UEFI BIOS is just the standard these days. So, if you need a run over of what the TPM is, I've given you this brief slide, have a read, but it was covered in Core 1. And same thing, read this if you want. I'm kind of starting to fly through this, guys, because my work's about to start and I gotta go. And then UEFI and secure boot, you just gotta make sure it's enabled, essentially. You've got modern UEFI and you've got secure boot enabled. All right, some revision here for you if you want to pause and have a read. You know what, we will cover secure boot. So your system powers on and the UEFI firmware initializes system components as usual. It then will go ahead to, for each boot, the components are checked against trusted signatures. So it's secure boot basically means it's making sure everything's okay. There's nothing wrong here. There's nothing has snuck in, nothing has changed. Everything is as expected, which is essentially how we're preventing malware. So any unauthorized or malicious software is blocked from loading. So if you've had any malware sneak in, it's going to be found out here in the ideal world. And then you've got a trusted boot. So the secure boot results in a trusted boot, meaning that only verified legitimate software is permitted to start. Everything else is blocked. So you can imagine why Windows 11 would want this to be enabled before you can install it, because it's better safety and better for them. That way, less user complaints if anything goes wrong, because if they're blocking all the malware, making sure everything's good, nothing's going to go wrong. All right. Yeah, we get it. Okay, so a quick question on this. For a computer to be compatible with Windows 11, which two related technologies must be present and enabled to ensure a safe startup process? A, master boot record and secure boot. B, TPM and BitLocker. C, unified extensible firmware interface or UEFI and secure boot. Or D, legacy BIOS and device encryption. Your answer is coming in 3, in 2, in 1. It is C. UEFI and secure boot. So really you need two things, right? You need to have your TPM 2.0 and you need to have a modern UEFI with secure boot. But the only correct answer to this question, where both were correct, was UEFI and secure boot. Both need to be there, all right? Really, you might have seen TPM and thought this one is, oh, I remember that, but you don't need to have BitLocker, right? That's not the strict requirement. The strict requirement is UEFI BIOS with secure boot enabled plus TPM 2.0. All right, so that was the correct answer there. So guys, look, if you have enjoyed this content, I know I started to get a little bit loopy at the end because been up early. I'm doing this before work, so I'm going a bit crazy. But if you have enjoyed this content and you want to join these people who are saying I've helped them pass their A+, I help this guy pass his A+, I help this guy have the best studying he's done since his entire time in high school and they passed the A+. My learning guide is goated. This person said that my organized information helps piece things together more easily. This person says my learning guide tried other resources, but mine they found to be the best. This person says my notes helped them pass their tests. This person says they passed their A+ and are now moving on to their Network Plus. This person says they passed their Core 1, now moved on to their Core 2. So everything I've done for them, I've put in my learning guide, which has notes and practice questions broken down by exam objectives. So you get notes and practice questions. You get 3 full-length randomized practice exams with performance-based questions. You also get a video showing you how to study with multiple choice questions. You get a video showing you how to use free AI tools to 10 times your learning with really cool study techniques. So if you're not sure how to study, I literally show you how to do that. And then I also give you a video on how to ace multiple choice questions. I give you some really good techniques and tactics on how to do that. So all of this is available at journeytocyber.com/1202. Go ahead and grab that for your convenience if that's what you want. And look, guys, I'm always going to put out this free content, so you don't have to do this. But if you want to join the people, those testimonials that I just shared with you, then you're going to want to head over here and grab the learning guide. Okay, with that being said, guys, I'm going to leave you with it. I'm going to leave you to it, and I will see you in the next one. See you guys. Bye.